The Las Vegas National Finals. For 10 years, this has been the grand finals for American Ninja Warrior. The place where they held their equipped with the Sasuke 4 different courses as the road to Mount Midoriyama. Basically a pseudo recreation of them. In this series, I plan to go over each one of the 4 stages of the American Ninja Warrior Las Vegas Finals and going through how they've evolved over the past 10 years. Talking about all its different obstacles, some unique trivia here and there about each version of the stage, and finally ranking each of them by the end. And I will also be giving them a grade from A to F when I'm done talking about them. Of course, this will all take elements from how effective each obstacle was were the obstacles particularly enjoyable to watch, and whether was there a good time limit, the little things. Making sure everything comes into play was generally what I was trying to do when making this series. I plan to make a part for each one of the Vegas finals, and it might be a long one, but this has been something I've been wanting to do for a while. So without any further ado, let's get into the first course, which started in American Ninja Warrior 4. Now, just to know, I'm not talking about American Ninja Warrior 1 through 3 because those use Sasuke 23, 26, and 27's courses. Courses I could easily talk about in a different video talking about Sasuke's courses. That would probably never make because how long that would be. But at the same time, I feel like other YouTubers could probably make a better version than I would. The simple fact is I want to focus on the Las Vegas finals. I know, a set of courses that have been the standard for 10 years and have been built on since then. That was my main goal here. So, starting with American Ninja Warrior 4, this was the first time they had to build out a Mount Midoriyama from scratch. And they did a plausible job. They got the blueprint from Sasuke 27's course and basically copied it obstacle for obstacle minus a few changes. To give an example, if we'll take a look at the Sasuke 27 layout compared to the first Las Vegas course. Yeah, there's only one obstacle change in between. Just to note that. Everything else is exactly the same from when Sasuke 27 and this course did. Oh, and 5 seconds will add on to the time limit. Alright, so let's start off with the basics. The first obstacle was the Step Slider, which was basically a precursor to the floating steps that would inhabit the qualifiers starting in AW8. This was not a hard obstacle, only took out a couple of people, and it was even easier than the Sasuke version, with its version having a lot of padding, while Sasuke version having wood. The second obstacle was the rolling log, which is one of the easiest obstacles on stage 1. It's really weird to see this here, especially since an obstacle like this would never inhabit stage 1 again. And yeah, this belongs at a qualifying course. It's really weird just to have this here. It really does feel out of place. And it didn't really grab anyone in particular in terms of knockout weights. Next up was the giant swing, which took out one person. Congratulations. I think you see what I mean. But yeah, this obstacle wasn't really all that effective. The obstacle with the most fail rates was the jumping spider. The jumping spider was carried over from Sasuke 27, and it was just about as hard as the one from Sasuke 27. It took out Ninja Veteran, once again, it being the obstacle that took out the most people in this season. The half-pipe attack was a unique obstacle, being a straight up. I think a half-pipe you had to run across to grab a rope to reach a landing platform that was pretty stiff. This obstacle was a little bit easier here than in Sasuke, as the landing pad was actually made on padding instead of wood. Aside from that, it is very similar, but works just fine, I guess. This obstacle did take out a few ninjas, and nothing too notable. Next up was the warp wall, which grabbed the second most amount of people, surprisingly enough. The warp wall was really only favorable from a tiny perspective, just like on Sasuke. So enough, it grabbed a surprising amount of people with no major veterans, but a lot of amateur runners getting here, but not being able to get up the wall because of the shorter one-up. Unlike the qualifiers, you had infinite tries, but again, you had much tries as the timer would allow you when you got there. So that's when the timer would come into play. The next obstacle was the spinning bridge, which was probably one of the most surprising obstacles is to grab plenty of familiar ninjas, most famously David Campbell, starting his legendary streak of Stage 1 fails that would end in American Ninja Warrior 9. This obstacle is just surprisingly difficult. It was made harder than the Sasuke version with the balls being a little bit more sensitive, thank God. But aside from that, nothing really too notable aside from it. But next up, we have the Tarzan rope and the rope ladder. The rope ladder basically just being the cargo net. It was basically just a rope that you swung into a cargo net. Basically, no one failed it, and it was mostly just a time waster. To get at the timer, it was 130 seconds. Or 2 minutes and 10 seconds. To put it bluntly, this was actually a pretty good time limit for this course, it being only about 5 seconds lower than the time limit from Sasuke 27's course. It was likely added an extra 5 seconds because of the rolling log. An obstacle that has a preset of time it would take to complete. The obstacles here weren't the best in the world, but some of them, again, grabbed some notable names. Overall, about 25 people completed Stage 1 in Season 4. It was a surprisingly high amount, of clears, but a surprisingly low amount and a surprisingly high enough in terms of fail, especially considering people like David Campbell, who was the one at all, did not move on. To me, this course is not the best in the world, but I can see why some people could be fine with it. I'm giving it a C-, mostly because it does its job, but it's lacking a lot of iconic obstacles, and it's lacking a lot of good obstacles too. Like, seriously. A lot of these obstacles just flat out suck and don't belong on Stage 1 at all. But it does have some good ninja killers, and I can see where it could still be considered a difficult course. However, if this course was still here today, it would be easily slogged by a majority of ninjas. Season 5 wasn't too innovative when it came down to changing this course. As for the next season, the first 3 obstacles would end up changing, with the step slider becoming the timbers, which were more like the step slider from Sasuke, being several wooden planks that you had to one-step across. There's only a couple of ninjas have failed it, including rookie Brian Wolczewski, but it wasn't really much of a difficult obstacle. Next up was the giant cycle, basically a giant wing that you had to grab and have in sequence with each other. This was kind of a dangerous obstacle with it, you easily would have bonked your head on it, famous for taking out Sam Sand like this, but honestly, that's really the only notable fail with this obstacle. It really didn't take out many people, aside from maybe Casey Council, if you really care that much. Next up was the rope glider, which, contrary to popular belief, should have taken out more people. This obstacle was a pretty deadly one on Sasuke, appearing on Sasuke 18. However, by the time it appeared on AEW, it was made way easier. Only one competitor ended up failing this obstacle, with everyone else clearing it with near ease. With near ease. Aside from those 3 obstacles, the course would have been made exactly the same from Season 4, with the jumping spider, half-pipe attack, warp wall, spinning bridge, Tarzan rope, and rope ladder, all not moved in their original spots, and the time remaining at 130 seconds. The most ninja-killing obstacle was once again the jumping spider, the spinning bridge being less deadly as well. Now, the course itself was probably just as difficult as Season 4's, with it seeming like they had no idea where we had to innovate. With the obstacles they replaced not only being all that many better than the previous incarnations, and in some cases even worse. Because of this, I have to give this course a D. It really doesn't do its best job. Do the best job in the grand scheme of things. Has 3 obstacles that grabbed almost no one, and the other obstacles that they had to pick up the slack. The Stage 1 is fine, but honestly, it could have done a lot better. And used its placement to innovate. American Ninja Warrior 6 would take this course and change almost nothing about it, but would improve one substantial thing. The first obstacle was changed out from the timbers to piston road, and this obstacle took out literally no one. Seriously, this is the first of, surprisingly enough, 3 obstacles on Stage 1 that have never taken out anyone, which is unfortunate to say for Stage 1. Next up, we had the Giant Wing, which is literally the same obstacle from Season 5 with a name change. I don't even know why I mentioned it like that. The one major improvement they made was the change from the rope glider to the silk slider. A way more difficult obstacle, and the obstacle with the highest knockout rate. The obstacle was based off the current slider from Sasuke, and of course innovated on the rope glider concept from last season. It also in a way fixed the problem of the rope glider being way too fucking easy, with making the current hard to grip, and making the pad easy to slip off of. Many competitors such as David Campbell and James McGrath fell off the landing pad and others just overshot it. And just overall, it was a very difficult obstacle that innovated a lot. The rest of the courses stayed exactly the same from AEW 5, which stayed exactly the same from AEW 4, with the jumping slider, half-time attack, warp wall, spinning bridge, Tarzan rope, and rope ladder. The final change was in the time limit, which was lowered from 2 minutes and 10 seconds to 2 minutes and 5 seconds, which, if I'm being honest, is probably the perfect timing for a Stage 1 course. It would be the last time a Stage 1 course would go below 1:30, and it would be the lowest time limit a stage was ever given in AEW, not counting Stage 4. Stage 4. Ranking this course on its own is really difficult to say. While the silk slider was obviously the big ninja killer, and the spinning bridge did grab some names. It really is tough with the first two obstacles grabbing basically no one, and and other obstacles not really having anybody notable fail on them. Because of that, this course gets a D+. It's not the worst thing in the world. It has one really good obstacle, that innovated, but with the two obstacles that took out barely anyone, you could definitely see how they could have done a lot better with this format. I think the time limit's good, but it's really the only change. And that's really the only really other change I can really give this course. But props to them for trying. Season 7. Oh man, Season 7. Season 7 saw a major change when it came down to the course. Piston Road would remain on Stage 1 despite it taking out no one. With no substantial changes made, but despite that, a couple of ninjas actually did fail on it this time. The propeller ball was added, an obstacle that would remain there for quite a while, and a way better second obstacle. It took out plenty of the short ninjas, and if I'm being honest, it was a pretty good obstacle, especially compared to everything else. It was a way better place for the obstacle than Stage 3, which we'll get to in the Stage 3 video. And yeah, returning from last season is the Silk Slider, an obstacle that was made a lot easier due to the landing pad being changed. The landing pad was a lot less slippery, so less people ended up falling off the darn thing. It was still a difficult obstacle, it was just that a lot of people had actually gotten the point of it, and a lot of people had prepared for it, notably Kevin Bull. After that, we have the Jumping Spider, and then the new obstacle, the Sonic Curve, which finally fixed the problem with the fifth obstacle. Half-Time Attack was just seen as too easy, while the Sonic Curve was at least more dynamic. Didn't take out too many ninjas. The biggest name it grabbed was ironically Ben Mueck, but nothing I can really say about it. The warp wall is still there as always, but then we have the coin flip, an obstacle that probably should have taken out more people than what it was worth. It only took out two ninjas, those being David Campbell and Justin Gilski. Honestly, quite surprising in my opinion, but to its credit, it is a lot more aesthetically pleasing than the spin bridge. It was just proven to be a little bit easier. The main reason is probably because of the humongous long quote-unquote coins. Honestly, I feel like these could have been made a lot smaller, and maybe add a fourth one in there to really chill competitors up. Finally, the final obstacle was finally changed. The triple swing, which honestly to me is more boring than the Tarzan rope. At least Tarzan rope was quick compared to this damn thing. But it at least made the cargo net failable, taking out people such as Carl Casimir, surprisingly. The time limit was up from 2 minutes and 5 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This time limit wasn't really all that substantial. Not many timeouts even happened this season. If I'm being honest, I say this time limit was a major step down from the past seasons being a huge crunch time. It was actually kind of difficult to get under the time limit, with seasons 4 and 5 having ninjas that finished in exactly 2:10. Either way, the timeline was magically degraded here, and it would see a huge change. From remaining within the 120 to 130 range, from changing to be within the 150 to 160 range. It's kind of unfortunate that this is where it is at. However, thankfully, Stage 1 would never hit 3 minutes, which is way too fucking much anyway. Stage 1 AW7 was a good attempt to innovate on Stage 1. To me, it gives itself a B. Yeah, piston wheel is still there. I didn't grab many people, but I can look over that with the addition of the propeller bar. The silk slider still being a good and somewhat deadly obstacle. The jumping spider still being a notable one. The sonic curve being mildly great. And the coin flip, despite being less difficult, was still a good idea. And I do applaud them for at least trying to change the final obstacle, even if once again the triple swing is just boring. I forgot to mention earlier, but the propeller bar would be the obstacle to take out the most people this season. Next up, Season 8. This course had a huge thing to live up to. It's successing the previous season's course, which had two ninjas, Jeff Britton and Isaac Caldero, conquer it and win the $1 million prize. So it was up to the producers to try to innovate the course enough to make it feel like a huge change. So it would feel like it wasn't so easy to get the $1 million once more. Now that it was proven that the course could be beaten. Did they succeed? I say they did, with one of the best stage ones we had. Stage 1's out of them all. Season 8 starts off right at the bait with a banger first obstacle, that being Snake 1. Snake 1 was divisive, but honestly a winner for me. It's way better than Piston Road, the Timbers, and the Step Slider, with all three obstacles grabbing people in the single digits. This obstacle completely changed that. It took out two notable names in Travis Wilson and Jeff Britton, and still took out plenty of other names as well. The obstacle on its own was very confusing, with the ones with you being able to choose your way, and it being really risky to take a fast approach, but it also being risky to take a slow approach. And plus it's stage 1, so you have a time limit. Next up was the returning propeller bar, which was given a longer rope and a longer jump. This obstacle needed this innovation in my opinion, and it's just as good as it was in AW7. Next up was an innovation that was definitely needed. The giant log grip replaced the silk slider, an obstacle that was way harder. The giant log grip was arguably the most difficult obstacle on that stage 1. It took out many ninjas such as Megan Martin, Kevin Ball, and Jamie Ron. Next up was the returning jumping spider, which I was definitely getting sick of at this point. The sonic curve returned in season 7. Even with it grabbing about the same number of victims. Honestly, I don't really have an opinion on this. It's a take it or leave it situation. The rope wall always still there as always. And next up is the broken bridge, an obstacle that took out even less people than the coin flip, which I didn't think was even possible. The obstacle took out one person. One single person. It was ultimately decided after the season that the broken bridge belonged on the qualifying course. It was being made a lot harder there with the bridge elevating. The glitch here, she always had some good ideas, but I do love the analogy presented by Universal Tubo.
Did Doritos pay them to do it?
Yeah. Then we have probably one of my favorite obstacles that was most aesthetically pleasing obstacles was in the entirety of A&W, the Flying Squall. It's not a super difficult obstacle, but at least an innovative one. This obstacle had two individually spinning handles that you had to grab on and keep in motion with. They had very small handholds, and it really had big jumps. People who can fly on them really excessed on this obstacle. Well, it was a big time waste, so if you had more than 30 seconds, you had less than 30 seconds, you really had to rush if you really wanted to finish stage 1. And the cargo net can easily clog up time. This season's time limit was a little bit lower than last season, it being 140 seconds, or 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Honestly, I applaud this change. With some nail-biting finishes, and the fastest time only having 35 seconds left on the clock. A huge contrast from last season's 51 seconds. So yeah, this time it was way more effective and caught Nick Raiders who really have a sense of duress under them. This course as a whole is really good. for stepping up in every way from AEW7 and past seasons as well. Oh, it gets a solid A+. It really deserves it. Oh, he deserves it. With every obstacle being very substantial, and at least grabbing a couple of people. Even the broken bridge, despite only grabbing one person, it still was a difficult obstacle and tripped up a few people. I will always give it that. I will at least give it that. It wasn't a nothing obstacle, unlike a later obstacle we'll talk about later. In its spot that we'll get to later. And the time limit was once again improved from the previous season. So yeah, straight up amazing. The only reason why it is not an S-Swag is because of two things. The broken bridge, because again, they didn't take out many people. And the jumping spider still being here. At this point, I would like this obstacle to be changed, but as everyone knows, this obstacle was never changed. So, yeah, I can't really fault it for that. But still, an amazing course all around, and really made an effort to try to innovate after American Ninja Warrior 7's total victories. American Ninja Warrior 9 would really try to step things up compared to AEW 8, despite it being a weekly performing year all around. Going to the course design, we have this a very similar layout to last season. Snake 1 and Propeller Bar is still here, being obstacles that took out less people, but was still just as hard as they were the previous seasons. I think it's just due to the competitors actually preparing for them. The obstacles are still difficult in their own right, and obviously I will never trade and Snake 1, I would never trade for anything. We also got a new third obstacle, this being an upgrade version of the Big Dipper from City Qualifiers, the Double Dipper. The Double Dipper was honestly one of the best obstacles in the entirety of the show. It being a dynamic obstacle that took on a wide. It's one of the funnest on the course, and honestly I give them big props for innovating here. JJ Woods probably put it best during his vignette during season 9.
It's like getting beat up by a massive guy, going back for a rematch, only to find out he has a bigger and better twin.
And then we have Parkour 1, a very situational obstacle, if you ask me. An obstacle that I like in design, but however, it took out literally no one. So, yeah, a lot of people say this obstacle sucks, with it even having a major shortcut that should not have been allowed, used by JJ Woods and Drew Dressel. However, to me, the obstacle is fine, as the obstacle could have been a good idea. It was trying to innovate on the Sonic Curve. All it really was doing was a big time waster. With the only thing it was really doing, stalling a whole bunch of ninjas who got caught up on the rope, such as Megan Martin and Jesse LeBlanc. It's the warp wall returned, but nothing really too substantial with it. And then we had the domino pipes, another very aesthetically pleasing obstacle that probably should have taken out more people. The obstacle took out 3 ninjas. The obstacle was also a big stopper. With competitors such as Chris DeGangi and Drew Canop failing to make it across the entire thing, but being able to save themselves but waste about 30 seconds. The final score and was in the color that would return from the previous season, with the final score getting a little bit of a color change, with being changed from red to a more bronze pinkish color. Still onto it. The timer was up from 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Ick, god damn it. This timer just kinda sucks. No down to the wire queers, as in the timer wasn't really all that substantial, with the slowest time was having more than 5 seconds left. This itself was a mix of the good and bad from AEW 8. It took the first 2 Oscars in AEW 8 and fixed fonts and kept them exactly the same, which could be a bad or good thing depending on how you look at it. To me, it's a good thing. They didn't really need to change. Anything from those obstacles. They were fine. I think competitors definitely just prepared for them more. The double dipper was a much needed innovation that was way more fun than any other obstacle on stage 1 ever. As before it and preceding it. And again, still a really good obstacle. Jumping spider still here, but again, that never moves. Parkour 1 is divisive, but it's ones that kind of take or leave a situation. I say a lot of people would probably say leave it but to me, I'm in the very small take it camp because it took out no one, but I still like the design of it. If it was made if distances between the pads were made a lot harder, it might have actually taken out some people. Again, the closest it got was almost knocking out Broadway's socket by hitting the pad really hard. The football's still here, and the dominant Python flying score didn't grab anyone too major, but was still very aesthetically pleasing obstacles. However, looks isn't always something you want to go with. I'm gonna give Season 9 A-. God damn it, it does deserve it. Again, the only reasons why I think it doesn't score as high as AMD 8 is mostly Parkour 1 and the finals going domino pipes not getting too many victims. But unlike the obstacles aesthetically, and honestly to me this is the best looking stage 1. And yeah, I know aesthetically pleasing obstacles may be a biased perspective for me because I like dynamic obstacles with a lot of movement involved. But who am I? But that's my opinion. And yet, next up we have American Ninja Warrior 10. And, yeah, this is very difficult to set, and if it was a good course or not. It's trying to innovate Season 9's, and I feel as in a weirdly substantial way. Hey, the course obstacle, Snake 1, was changed into Archer Alley, a modified version of the Archer steps from the City Finals courses. Yeah, I grabbed less people than the Snake 1, but I can't say I didn't like it. It was still a difficult obstacle. I was going to cause surprisingly and took out a couple of great names such as Alyssa Beard, Michelle Wonky, and Kyle Solzy. The propeller ball will return, and by this point, a lot of people were thinking the propeller ball was getting quite stale, and I can agree with that. By this point, it probably should have been rotated out for something else. This being its 4th season, and it's being its least successful, is least successful, with the most notable victim probably being Judas Licadello. The double dipper to return with a serious knack for revenge. This obstacle would easily be the obstacle with the highest knockout rate, taking out more than 20 ninjas. God damn it! Most of those ninjas being quite big names, such as Joe Mawaski, Travis Rosen, Flip Rodriguez, Dave Kavanaugh, Carson Williams, David Campbell. The list goes on. Just so many ninjas were taken out by this thing. That being major shocks. Lost my compilation video and count how many people you saw from AW10. It's a huge amount. And Joe Mawaski, to be honest, is arguably probably the most shocking thing in AW's history. No one expected that. I tried finding a reason for this, but there really isn't. It just seems like that the obstacle was just more deadly that year. Nothing was really changed substantially from the previous season to really warrant a higher knockout rate. It just ended up happening. The jumping spider would once again return, but the 5th obstacle would be changed out, which was definitely necessary. It was changed to a sponsor obstacle. Thankfully it was the only one on stage 1, so I don't have to complain too much. Jeep 1. This obstacle is interesting, with it being 4 tires that led to a steering wheel, transforming to another steering wheel, and then onto a big wheel that spun. It's an obstacle that was trying way too hard to be dynamic and aesthetically pleasing, with it falling right in the middle, with it not taking out many ninjas, but it's still grabbing at least a couple of notable names, one including Wyatt Stratus. Yes. The whoop wall still here as always, and then we have the worst obstacle ever. Okay, there's a lot of others worse than this, but this right here is the most boring obstacle ever on A&W. The laser beams. An obstacle that has impressively taken out no ninjas and tripped up almost no one. Unlike Parkour 1, which was at least substantially difficult, though despite it grabbing no ninjas, this obstacle right here was the easiest thing A&W has ever done ever. It's boring and it's a straight up nothing obstacle. Nothing obstacle. The most that ended up happening with this obstacle was with Hunter Ward, where the last ended up spinning on him and him just barely making it. But the thing is, it never spun. This is probably because the obstacle had very heavy platforms, so unlike its predecessor, Razor's Edge, it was actually a lot easier. Again, if they just popped on Razor's Edge, literally the same thing as the qualifiers, it would have been a way better obstacle. Them trying to make a new obstacle out of it was an okay idea. In execution, it was done absolutely horribly. and absolutely horribly. The final obstacle was also changed out, that being for the notable twist and fly. Twist and fly is a nice spin on the flying squirrel. It's a nice change of pace. It's an obstacle that adds on the double crystal from Minneapolis that earlier that same season. And finally fixes the problem of Stage 1's final obstacle not being all that difficult in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, we lost the aesthetically pleasing flying squirrel, but in contrast, we got an obstacle that took out a lot more ninjas and was aesthetically a lot more difficult. With a time limit of 145 seconds, or 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Honestly, it's honestly an okay enough innovation. Obstacles like the fucking laser beams definitely take it down a peg. But the double dipper took out many ninjas. It's difficult to like this course on its own, but I would definitely give it a B+. It is trying its hardest to be a good course, and I can see some parts of this course being a part of that list, but with them reusing the propeller bar, Jeep 1 not being all that good, but then the laser beams being fucking abysmal, and the time once again not having many it's not really having any nail-biting finishes. It's honestly very unfortunate with this course. It's just fine to me. American Ninja Warrior 11. Oh, yikes. Alright. First obstacle would remain the same from last season, it being Archer Alley. And it's still being Archer Alley. The obstacle is roughly the same with the archers being a bit smaller. But the obstacle was probably just as difficult. It's taking out less people. Spin your wheels was changed. The propeller bar was changed into spin your wheels. Honestly, spin your wheels is basically just a worse version of Roulette Low on stage 2. Spin your wheels has like one difficult aspect, that being the dismount. Before the dismount, it's a kind of an easy obstacle, all things considered. After that, we have the returning Double Dipper, which while it didn't grab as many people as Season 10, thank God, it was still very difficult. It was still just as difficult as last season, with once again, it just seemed like people got better than it. The Jumping Spider stereo, and then we have a major design change with the obstacle Tire 1. It's almost exactly the same as Jeep 1, with the naming being changed to remove all the sponsorship. However, the obstacle was heavily redesigned as well, with the big tire being moved from here, as we move to the final move of the obstacle to right here. Meaning it was in between between the two steering wheels. It was actually made a lot harder this way, with a lot of ninjas falling straight off and things like Drew Drescher and Najee Richardson. The tire itself added a whole nother layer to this jump. And the obstacle was actually made really difficult. We of course have the warp wall, and the diving boards, which is the obstacle to take out the most competitors. Diving boards is definitely a good obstacle, no doubt about it. Returning from Oklahoma City, it had springboards right below each of the platforms, and you had to land on them correctly. The obstacle finally fixed the problem that all the balance obstacles on stage 1 since the spin bridge had, with them having maybe good ideas but not being able to execute them well. The diving board was able to do this, with the obstacle taking out plenty of notable ninjas, and it was a very dangerous obstacle as well. The obstacle actually felt like it had a purpose. The Twisted Fly would end up returning from the last season, but then having no really major changes from that season. Again, it's fine, nothing really too substantial to talk about it. The obstacle time limit was up from 1 minute 45 seconds for 145 seconds to 150 seconds. I can take it or leave it. It's fine enough. For once again, no really gut-wrenching finishes, so the time movement doesn't really feel like it had much of an impact. So yeah, what I call AW11 having stage 1 improvement, or it's an improvement over AW10. I would say yes, but not really much an improvement over from AW8 or 9, but a slightly higher B+. It's honestly a tough pick, but I do think it's slightly better. The reason why it's not an A- is because many of the obstacles were better on concept, but didn't grab as many ninjas as you may think. And again, spin your wheels could have really been a better obstacle. American Ninja Warrior 13. After a 2-year hiatus and a total victory, this season's stage 1 was crafted to be to be a stage 1 that would knock out many people, and it kind of does that with it feeling very uninspired. The obstacles were radically changed up, with only a couple of ones actually remaining in the similar spots. The first obstacle was changed from the good Archer Alley to the very boring and mediocre Slide Surfer. Not a bad obstacle, but very easy due to the gaps between the side surface being really easy and the things moving onto the snail's pace. It took out two people, though one of those people including Megan Martin. The second obstacle was changed from spinning wheels to swinging blades, a way harder obstacle that probably deserved to take on more people than it actually did. The obstacle actually felt more like a stage 3 obstacle in terms of the grips it had. They actually tested the competitive, and was still a really difficult obstacle, and kept the difficult dismount thing from AW Evans spinning wheels. The Double Dipper would end up returning for its final season, it being just as good as every other season, despite taking out the least amount of people. The Jumping Spider would once again return along with Tire 1. Tire 1 and the Warp Wall. Tire 1 would be made slightly easier with the wheel being less sensitive, but aside from that, it was basically the same. After the Warp Wall, we had a new obstacle, the Dipping Birds, which I don't know why they changed the Diving Birds out for this. So Dipping Birds, I guess, isn't bad. It took out more ninjas than both the Domino Pipes and Broken Bridge combined. Than Laser Beams, Domino Pipes, and Broken Bridge combined. But honestly, it's still not the best obstacle in the world. I like Diving Birds way the frick better, and I think it belongs on stage 1 a lot more. However, when it comes down to the final obstacle, Season 13 did something very different. Split Decision. Basically the big gimmick for the season. Similar to the Viking, they gave you a choice in terms of what obstacle you wanted to change. After the Warp Wall, there was a button for the high road. There was a button to activate the high road. A time-based obstacle that would take about 8 seconds to get down the track. It was your goal to run past the diving boards very quickly and time your jump correctly to get to the high road. If you took too much time or didn't trust yourself to commit, you had to go to the brand new obstacle, the fly hooks. The high road itself was actually quite a difficult obstacle and put a unique spin on stage 1 as a whole. As much as it might change the dynamic of stage 1, I actually kind of like it. It allows ninjas who have less than 30 seconds to actually save their one. And with the fly hooks being a very time-consuming obstacle, depending on how good you are at it, it could easily be a good alternative. Speaking of the fly hooks, it's not the best obstacle in the world, but I can see there's some merit. It's just very similar to the Twist and Fly. It just seems like it trying to be the same thing Twist and Fly is. This time limit ended up being 165 seconds. A way too long time limit for stage 1 as a whole, but it ended up being a fine enough time limit with some down to the wire ones, including Adam Wales' one, which ended with him finishing with only a tenth of a second left. I can give the stage 1 for making its time limit being plausible with the obstacles that were there, but it's not plausible in terms of what stage 1 is supposed to be. Okay, wanking. Yeah, that's hard for me to say. But honestly, it's a solid B for me. The side surfer just feel like it's there. The swinging blades feels really underrated. The Double Dipper is surprisingly disappointing. It's not great, but it's still fun. Jumping Spider's still here. Tire 1 got nerfed. But it's fine. And for some reason, the diving boards we move. I do applaud Split Decision for adding something unique to the end of the stage, and trying to change it up. I will give it that. But I can't say it really reaches the highs of AW 8 and 9's of stage 1 due to the high time limit and some obstacles just straight up not being difficult. Finally, we have the most recent stage 1, American Ninja Warrior 14. This is difficult to decide, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Starting with the obstacles, we have the returning Slide Surfer, which is just as difficult as last time, which means it isn't really all that difficult at all. The obstacle grad had just the same amount of people as last time, it being only 2 ninjas, both of them being women. The second obstacle was changed from the second blades to one of the most gimmicky and stylistic obstacles ever, 3-Ring Circus. Okay, so AW14 had a very stupid carnival theme with a lot of its obstacles. Three-wing surfer only took out one competitor, that being surprisingly enough Sean Bryan. Aside from that, the obstacle itself was proven to be quite easy. It was a fine enough idea, but again, it combined too many things to really be good. It was overly gimmicky, if I'm being honest. Next up, we have the giant roller coaster. Basically, an attempt to innovate on the Double Dipper, but ultimately failing because the roller coaster is a way easier obstacle. I think it's kind of tragic that the Double Dipper was actually replaced by this guy. The roller coaster is again a lot easier of an obstacle. It's a lot easier of an obstacle, and plus it took out even less people than the Double Dipper did in its last season, that being only 7 people. It's kind of unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. The Double Dipper kind of just got a swan song of its final season, despite it being a very good obstacle. It was the only obstacle that stuck around from the good time. It stick around all throughout this era, so it's kind of disappointing that it was changed out, especially since the obstacle it was changed out for was not a good one. Yeah, I will admit, an obstacle like this, an obstacle that had lasted for 4 seasons, I guess have run its course, but when there's an obstacle when there's 2 obstacles that haven't changed once since their debut in AW4, but both of them probably should be at this point, you can kind of see what I mean. Of course, the jumping spider returns, and we have a brand new obstacle, tetherball, which, I never liked this thing. I've gone back and forth with it, but to me, it just seems like a very tall and too stylistic of an obstacle. It's fine on its own level, and I do admit it's quite a difficult one, and if you don't know what you're doing, but god damn it, do I hate it. Hate it on a stylistic change. The obstacle just doesn't. It just looks strangely out of place. Maybe if it just looked maybe if it just stuck out less, I would be okay with it, but I don't know. Warp Wall's still here, the Dipping Birds are still here, and Split Decision looks the same way as it does in AW13. The time limit was up from 165 seconds to 170 seconds. What the freaking no? It can do. Not too many down to the wire finishes with the time limit, but once again, I guess it's okay in the grand scheme of things. Again, and this is way too much of a high timer for stage 1, but it's a fine enough timer with the obstacles that are here, so it kind of just strikes a weird in the middle balance. Stage 1 overall in AW14 is divisive, a regression. It's really hard to call this course something better than AW13. It's so one in the middle. It just feels like they forcibly innovated with none of the obstacles they changed even really being all that good. C+. The best obstacles here are once again the ones that will never change. So the ones that will change are the ones that stick, and the ones that will change were the ones I pointed out, and were the ones that stuck out to me. The Big Ninja who was ironically was surprisingly enough the jumping spider again, because again the obstacles here just weren't really all that difficult. It's kind of ironic if that's the case. Anyway, so yeah, that's all 10 versions of Stage 1 over the years of AEW. There are 2 more things I would like to do. The first thing I'd like to do is rank every Stage 1 from worst to best. Coming in a and you guys can probably gauge how far this is, but I want to spell it out for the people but I feel like the video would be incomplete without this. Coming in last place is AW4, in very easy Stage 1. A very easy Stage 1 that set the standard but did nothing else. Coming in at 9th place is Season 5's. Not much of an improvement, but it's fun. Not much of an improvement, but you can tell it tried. Coming in 8th place is Season 6. Not to me. The Silk Slider is a good obstacle, but I can't really call it anything better. With several obstacles that didn't take out many people, it's kind of a mixed bag. 7th place, American AW14. This course is just one of the mill. It just feels so out of place, and the obstacle, as in the brand new obstacles are so gimmicky, was not aesthetically pleasing, feel really unnecessary, all the worst of the course, and the side surfer really should have been changed out. Or for something else. American Ninja 6th place. American Ninja Warrior 7. Season 7 haven't had some good ideas here and there. Had some good ideas, but honestly, they fell flat at its execution. The reason why it's higher than all the other stage ones is because it's always fun to watch. It's kind of weird, but to me, I kind of like watching all the obstacles that are in the stage 1. It always has that going for it, even if obstacles like the triple swing. It's like the triple swing and coin flip. I would have grabbed barely anyone and felt very uninspired. Coming in 5th place, this is American Ninja Warrior 10. Honestly, it's tough to rank this one, but to me, the big player here is the laser beams. That's the main reason why it's not a good course. The laser beams is literally nothing to this course. And it being here is just a huge detriment. The powerball still being here after 4 years is annoying. Only because it just feels substantial. It just feels like a trend at this point. But I do give it some points from innovating. And obviously the double dipper grabbing so many ninjas made it such a nerve-wracking obstacle whenever someone attempted it. And they were a big name veteran. Coming in 4th place is American Ninja Warrior 11. Honestly, this thing's obstacles is fine. I can't say much bad about it. But the worst thing about probably being spin your wheels. It has some of the best iterations of each one of the obstacles. Because while it's not the best stage 1, it's definitely not the worst, and I can say it's still a cool stage 1. Coming in 3rd place is American Ninja Warrior 13. Probably quite a surprising pick for a lot of you guys. But honestly, this stage 1 is still really enjoyable for me. Maybe it's just because of split decision, innovating the course in a cool way. Or maybe it's the fact that it has a very underrated obstacle, that probably should have been given more spotlight, the swinging blades. Maybe it's because it feels like a best of both worlds situation with it innovating in the 11's course, but it's still feeling just as hard. It's just as difficult. If I had to dock any points for it, it's definitely going to be the slide surf for being an easy obstacle. And for replacing the diving boards with the dipping boards. Honestly, a very worst obstacle. I don't see why the diving boards had to be taken out if the high road was supposed to be was a thing. I honestly can see it still be here, in my opinion. In 2nd place, we have AW9. Yeah, you can see why I included this as the 2nd best stage 1. Maybe it's a biased perspective because Season 9 is my favorite season overall. But honestly, I just think all the obstacles here are really good. Even if Parker 1's here, which is an obstacle that took out no one, it still had some potential. And it's in the final 2 obstacles to domino pipes and flying school, were aesthetically pleasing and felt like they belonged in stage 1. So yeah, it's kind of a best of both worlds situation. And plus, you have to give some points for the debut of the Double Dipper. Finally, we have American Ninja Warrior 8. Obviously, this is the best stage 1. It is the hardest. Grab the most big names. Had some really cool obstacles such as Snake 1 and the Giant Log Whip. And was overall very nerve-wracking to see any competitor run through this because, again, it took out many big names. Take a look at that video made by the official NW channel on how and count how many stage 1 fails there are now. It's a lot of them, and some of them weren't even included, and some of the more shocking ones weren't even included, such as Kevin Bolt and Jamie Wan. And yeah, that's my rankings for each stage 1. Now, one last thing. What is my preferred course design for stage 1? Yeah, this sounds like me dragging on the video, but I am legit want to do this. This organizes together the best of all obstacles that could be in each spot. my preferred layout for stage 1. This takes out previous obstacles. This uses all previous obstacles and meshes them together for a hopefully innovative and a little more fresh stage 1. Let's get to the list. First obstacle, Snake 1. You can probably see why I put this here due to my high praise of it. It's just really confusing, and honestly, it could trip up a lot of competitors. It grabbed some big names in the 2 seasons it was in, and honestly, I always enjoyed seeing it. It was kind of worrisome seeing any competitor attempt this thing unlike any other first obstacle on stage 1. Next up, you might call me biased, but I decided to pop on the swinging blades. And I'll go that once again, I feel I can grab a lot more ninjas depending on what season it's on. And plus, I really like the obstacle. The obstacle, to me, it just should be there. Next up, it was a tough pick, but I decided to go with the Double Dipper. A perfect blend. This obstacle is great. I say more. For the fourth obstacle, it's kind of unfortunate because again, it was never changed from the jumping spider. If it were me, I would probably pop in something completely different. An obstacle that shakes up the form of stage 1. Maybe something like the flying ball. Maybe pop in the flying ball or something. To make it go along a track and stuff. Maybe something to cover the distance. To me, I just want something that isn't the jumping spider because honestly, to me, it's not an obstacle. It's really all that innovative with it being there for all 10 years of stage 1. For the sake of it being possible, I guess I'll pop it in there, but just know how unoriginal it is at this point. The fifth obstacle? Oh, fuck yeah. I want Tire 1. It's a no-brainer for me. Warp Wall will always stay I feel like the Warp Wall deserves a place on stage 1. It being in Vegas is kind of a requirement, so I'm definitely okay with it coming back each year. Unlike Jumping Spider, I'd say it's fine in the place it is. For the 7th obstacle, I will include the diving boards, and for the 9th, it was a difficult pick, but I decided to go with Twist and Fly. Yeah, Flying Squirrel is aesthetically pleasing, but to me I feel like an obstacle that has more of a knockout weight is better than an obstacle that has a very little knockout weight, but is more aesthetically pleasing. Once again, Twist and Fly still feels like a dynamic and fun obstacle. The perfect time limit for stage 1 to me was AW6's time limit, 2 minutes and 5 seconds. However, for this course, I highly doubt that would have been possible, unless that would be a possible time limit. To me, the perfect blend of a stage 1 course would probably be 2:30. It would probably be 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That will be about it for this video on stage 1 of American Ninja Warrior. The final thing I'm gonna leave you guys for this is a little bit of a makeshift one, so you guys can see what my course could look like. I combined clips of all the obstacles I mentioned for my preferred stage 1, and made them into a 4-on-1 for the course. You guys can tell me what you think in the comments about this, but I just want to show you guys what it could look like. Anyway. Well, I will see you guys next time hopefully next week for stage 2. Peace. Hold up, pause. That wasn't the original video that I planned to show off the stage 1 at the end. However, YouTube said that's too copyright for me and decided to force me to upload separately. So that is linked in the description so you guys can see that. It's unlisted, but it's in the description so you guys can see it. So if you guys want to see that one of stage 1 I made, make sure to check the description for it. But otherwise, I guess I'll just see you guys in the next video. Peace.